Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my Imperfect Pursuit podcast. I am Carrie Irvin. I am glad you're here. This is episode 61. I didn't record a podcast last week, but we're back and we're ready. Episode 61, Awareness versus Failure. When and why we label ourselves as a failure. We're going to talk all about it because I know each and every one of you out there listening at some point in your life has felt like a failure. Maybe you tried something and it just didn't quite work out the way you wanted. Maybe um, you just in general feel like everything you do doesn't quite work out, therefore you're a failure, whatever it may be. We're going to dive into what is the difference between awareness and failure. And you might think, you know what, I know the difference between awareness and failure. Why are we even talking about this? However, this is the interesting thing. Once we become aware of something that we might need to be working on in our lives, whether it be something like a personal goal, whether it be something just like maybe you want to organize your closet, whatever it might be, once we become aware that whatever that is that we need to work on, that maybe we've been letting that slide, then sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, failure will come through the door, set itself down on the couch, and just say it's going to stay for a while. Because we tend to think when we're aware of something that needs to be worked on, it must mean we failed at it. And the reason I want to talk about this is a few weeks ago, actually last week, in my group coaching program, we did a little exercise and we went over different aspects of our lives. Now, I have I have what's called a wheel of abundance. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm sitting here doing a circle with my hands. But it's called the wheel of abundance. And anybody can do it, but I love walking my clients through it, whether it be a one-on-one client or you're in my group coaching program. And what this allows us to do is see different areas of our life, all the different aspects of our life, and in those areas, how are we doing? Are we doing really well? Are we kind of in the middle? Are we dipping down towards the lower end? And you rate it on a scale, and it's very self-explanatory. And I'm going to include that here in the show notes, the Wheel of Abundance. And it's a free resource for you. And it just allows you to become aware of areas of your life that maybe you need to work on, and also be aware of the areas that you're rocking and be like, wow, this is really good. Because those areas that you feel like you're doing really good in, and you're realizing what steps am I taking for that area of my life to seem successful, look at that, look at the pattern, and then you maybe, well, not maybe, but you need to apply that to the areas of your life that you feel like, I'm kind of letting this go. So going back to the group coaching session, we did an exercise similar to this last week. It was a little bit different. I had it set up to more of a personal level, and like as far as like their spiritual level, where they saw themselves. And it was a scale on a scale of 1 to 10. And I recently, that exercise was done with me by my life coach. And she had different topics that she was going through. But I thought, oh my goodness, we all need to do this. We all need to be aware of areas that we're doing really well in, areas that are kind of just in the middle, and that we want to improve some, and then areas that we just kind of know we're letting slip. Okay. Now, so what was very interesting is when we started doing that exercise, and I said, okay, and I'd bring up a topic and I'd say, okay, how do you feel about your physical health? We'd go through it, and I explained some things on a level, on a scale of 1 to 10, and I had them use yourself as the scale. Like, how do you see it? Not like, oh, where I want to be, and I'm just, no, like, where are you on this? Okay. And be honest with yourself. And this is not to make yourself feel bad. Okay. So what was interesting was afterwards, I had one of the women that was in that's in my group coaching program, reached out and she said, Carrie, while you were doing it, she didn't have her face on the screen, because she was running errands and she had pulled over in a parking lot and was kind of doing it, listening to the exercise. And so she just had her name up on the screen. She goes, if you had seen my face every time you like brought up a new, okay, let's look at this part of our life. She goes, oh, I was making all these faces. She said it, and she goes, I just was like, oh, I need to work on that. Oh, I need to work on that. And I started feeling really bad. And I wanted the women to know, as we were doing this is not intended to make you feel bad. It might make you a little bit uncomfortable because it's going to make you aware of areas as it needs to be, as that's the reason we do those exercises, is it's going to make you aware of the areas of your life that maybe you've just either put on the back burner on purpose, or maybe other things have happened and you didn't realize, oh my goodness, I'm really letting this slide. I thought I was doing okay and I haven't really been tending to it. I know I haven't, but man, it's really been getting away from me more than I thought. And so it's such a powerful exercise to help you build a foundation. Okay, where are you at right now in your life? And it makes you also aware what stressors are going on in your life. What has shifted in your life? Are you going through a rougher season than usual? And I will tell you that wheel of abundance for me, my own life coach, she has her own, it's called a life wheel. And when I took it, I tweaked it a little bit and all that stuff and made it for my group coaching, kind of what I coach on. And she coaches my group coach, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, does it a little bit differently. But I had neglected doing this, her life wheel assessment. And after my father passed away, um, I went back, I guess it was probably within a month and a half after he passed. I decided, I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to do it. And I did it and I filled it out. And I was honest with myself and oh my goodness, had I let some areas of my life slide. And, but I also held grace for myself in there because, of course, I let some areas slide. I was dealing with the unexpected passing of my father and all the emotions, and not just the passing and the grieving, but we were having to go and get his home ready to sell, all the emotions of selling a family home, because it was also my grandmother's home that he ended up having. And so there was a lot of memories there of my grandmother, and then, of course, of him, and then sorting through all the things because his household stuff was combined with my grandmother's household stuff, and there was a lot. And then as I'm going through just all these things in their house, it was very emotional because it brought back a lot of memories, and I miss my grandmother terribly. She passed away my freshman year of college unexpectedly, and so it brought back a lot, and the grieving of her, and then grieving with my dad, and then just all the emotions of selling the family home. I couldn't afford to do repairs on it, and I couldn't afford to buy out, because it was me and my brother, to buy out my brother's portion of the house and then keep it for myself. So we knew selling it was the next best thing. And it ended up being a blessing to our family. And I know my dad looking down would be very happy to know it blessed us. And so would my grandmother, but still a lot of emotions with it. Like I find myself getting emotional right now just thinking about it. So when I went and did this life wheel assessment, of course, there were some areas that had just I didn't mark very high on. And was it eye-opening? Yes. And at first I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've been letting that part of myself go. And I started feeling like a failure. And then as a life coach, that part kicked in and said, well, you should be better than this. You're a life coach and you're coaching these women on this. You should know better. There's the shoulds. I always tell you the shoulds in my book is equivalent to an S word, because that is right there saying, oh, you should, well, if you're perfect, then this should never happen to you, or you should not ever let that happen. There's the other perfection bar, and we're never ever going to achieve that, right? And if you ever need help if you struggle with perfectionism, guys, I did a podcast episode called The Disease of Perfectionism, and go back and listen to it. I've had people reach out and say, oh my goodness, this is so eye-opening, because I believe each of us have an area of our life where perfectionism just rears its ugly head. And for me, when I became a life coach, it really showed through because I wanted everything to be perfect. And so, but that is what pushed me to create this podcast, My Imperfect Pursuit, because I'm going to imperfectly pursue a life that God wants me to lead. And it's not going to be perfect. And there's going to be days I purposely just mess up because I'm human and I make bad choices. And then there's just going to be times where I'm just not showing up as my best because of outside circumstances and what I'm allowing that to do to me. So that, going back to that, the passing of my father, I had allowed some things to slide backwards, right? To regress. And with that, and that's where coaching came in handy, was I gave myself a huge helping of grace. And you're like, what does that mean? You give yourself grace. That means I realized, you know what? I was not going to make myself feel bad about it. I'm just glad that I'm aware, now that I'm aware that I need to work on these areas of my life. So sometimes though, if I hadn't had the coaching and just like going, moving forward, like to my coaching session last week with my group coaching program, Unleashed. And like I said, one of the women in there reached out and said, "Oh my goodness, I started feeling so bad every area of my life. I just felt like I've let go," because she's going through a very, very rough season of her life. And I'm telling you, and I was like, no, that's the last thing you want to do, because that is exactly what the enemy wants. He wants you to feel like a failure. And we're not going to let this exercise of becoming aware of areas of our life that we need to work on make it mean that we're a failure in that area, because we so often want to do it. Like, I'm wearing a t-shirt. If you watch me on YouTube, I have this t-shirt. I saw it online. I'm not an affiliate of Beacon Threads, but I saw their things on Instagram, and it says, my t-shirt says, "The devil is a liar." I love it. And I had to order it. I was like, heck yeah. So I'm wearing it today because I thought it was quite fitting for this podcast episode, because the enemy will come in and tell you, "Oh yeah, so you've been going through kind of a rough patch, and you really have kind of let some of your friendships go. You really haven't been keeping up with your friends because maybe you're dealing with the loss of a parent, or maybe one of your parents is going through something in their health, and you're having to kind of step in and help, or whatever that season might look like for you." And so I'm just saying, as an example, let's say you just haven't been going out and hanging out with the friends, doing all the things, keeping up with your friends, whatever it may be. The enemy is going to come in and he's going to tell you you're an awful friend, because you're going to be aware, like, "Oh my goodness, I've been letting my friendships go. I really haven't. My friends have been asking me to come out for coffee or what all. And I can't, I can't, I can't. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling sad. Now they're not reaching out to me anymore. Oh my goodness, I'm an awful friend. I'm a failure. I'm a failure of being a friend." The enemy's like, "Yes, please, please take that bait. I want you to think, I want you to believe that you're a failure." And I'm going to say, absolutely not. We're going to speak into that and say, "The devil is a liar and he's lying straight to you." And you say, "Nope, not today. You know what? I'm just aware that I've been kind of letting that go. And I noticed that I miss my friends." And I guarantee you, you reach out to your friends and you say, "Hey guys, I know y'all been asking me to go to coffee, or, been texting me and I haven't really been responding back," whatever it might look like. And you just say, "This has just been a rough season. It's just been hard." I guarantee you, your friends, the true friends, are going to be like, "You know what? We get it. It's okay. We understand. How can we help you? What can we do?" Like, if you can't make it to coffee because you feel like it's another thing on your plate, what can we do to help lighten the load for you? Whatever you're walking through. A lot of times people just want to be listened to. It's that simple. They don't want you to fix it. They just want to be listened to. So that right there is where the awareness, and you understand awareness versus failure. And that is what I'm talking about, is a lot of times once we become aware of an area of our life that we're letting slide, the enemy will try to walk in and say, "You're a failure in that area." You're not a failure. You're not a failure. You're human. You're human. And there, sometimes in some seasons of our life, it is very hard to just keep everything going the way it was. To be everything is strong. You're going to have seasons where you're rocking it and pretty much everything looks good. And then life will come, and the outside circumstances that you cannot control and nothing you can do can control, whether it be what somebody else did or said, or maybe it's just something that's happening, whatever it might be. And then you start to realize things are sliding, and if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, what might have been an 8 now looks like a 6, and then you're starting to already see it slide quickly down to a 4, whatever. Okay? And that's when you give yourself grace and say, "Okay, of course this is kind of this on this scale, it's sliding backwards, and I'm going to tell you that's normal. It's normal. That is life. On that scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not so great at all, just barely there, 10 rocking it, it's going to be going back and forth. And it's all going to kind of rotate. If you're looking at it like a pie chart, in each little section, it's going to be going back and forth. And you're going to, like I said, you're going to have some seasons that the scales look great. All right. And I don't ever expect anybody's scales to all be 10, but you're also going to have some where not so good. But it's always good to become aware. So it's like, for example, let's say there's a closet in your house that drives you bonkers. You need to organize it. You know you need to organize it. Every time you open it up, it's a mess. it just drives you crazy. It's kind of a source of stress for you, right? So you know you need to work on it. You're aware you need to work on it versus like not knowing, like, yeah, I think it's good. Anybody looking and go like, well, yeah, but everything's falling out of it. Every time you open the door, things fall out of it. So becoming aware that you need to work on that closet is the first step. Like, you know what? I need to organize this closet. So that way, when I walk into it, I can find things easier. It's not stressful. I don't walk in and feel like, oh, it's another thing on my plate. Like, oh my goodness, I failed. I'm such a bad homeowner or bad organizer. I failed at this because this closet is a mess. Sometimes what we fail to see is, but yeah, but the rest of our house is looking pretty good. We just have this closet that kind of needs some mess. Sometimes we fail to see those areas of our life that we're doing okay, and all our focus goes on the negative. But I will tell you, becoming aware of that area that you feel like is negative, instead of looking at it like, oh, this is a bad thing, I'm just aware. I'm just aware I need to do this. Okay. So, what are the action steps? Because becoming aware is the very first step, and letting go of the feeling of guilt and shame and the enemy trying to tell you you're a failure. You just shut the door on that, tell him not today. He just needs to go his own way. And I will tell you this. So, once awareness is the first step in your life, if there's an area of your life that you know, like if you do this Wheel of Abundance, go and download it. It's free. It's a PDF. You can print it out as many times as you want. It's recommended to do it every 90 days just to see where you're at. If you're going through a kind of a rough patch, you can obviously do it more every 30 days. You don't have to wait until the 90-day mark. It's just that 90-day mark is typically people work on 90-day goals. Okay. So get yourself a baseline. Where am I at? How do I see this? And when you find that area, you're like, I already kind of know this is going to be one that doesn't score very well. You give yourself the grace because God does not want you to feel like a failure. And that's where I would tell you, you lean back into Him and you just pray for peace in that area of your life. Okay, this part of my life is not going well. All right, God, give me the wisdom to know what can I do about it? What things can I do to improve? So the first step is awareness, and then from there you can take action. Just like that proverbial closet I'm talking about. We all have a space in our house that we know needs a little work. That doesn't mean you're a failure. If you're like, oh gosh, like, I have this junk drawer in my house, or maybe two junk drawers, who knows? I don't even care if you have a whole like series of junk drawers and you're saying like, I'm a terrible homeowner. I'm a terrible person because I have several junk drawers. No, no, you're not. Okay. So like, if you don't like it, what can we do? What can you do to make it to where that doesn't happen anymore for you? All right. But if you sit and you listen to shame, if you sit and listen to the enemy telling you you're a failure, that look at what you've done, you felt somehow, guess what? Chances are you are not going to take action on it because you're going to sit in shame. You're going to sit in guilt. You're going to think, I can't believe I let this get away from me. And that's why I say you have to give yourself grace because the enemy is going to want you to not give grace, because if he can keep you sitting in shame, if he can keep you sitting in guilt, then guess what? You're never going to take action. And he wants you to sit in shame. He wants you to sit in guilt. Remember, the enemy's MO is he comes to kill, to steal, and destroy, right? And that's what he loves to do. And if there's any area of your life that he's like, oh, they're gaining some ground here, how can I pull them back and make them feel miserable? Or how can I make them even unhappier if they're going through a rough season? I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to, as they say, kick a man while he's down. That's exactly what he does. So, right then and there, when you become aware of an area of your life that you need to work on, give yourself ample amount of grace and look and be like, you know what? Of course, this area of my life isn't as strong. Look at what I've been kind of walking through. It's not an excuse because some people say, well, that's an excuse. You're excusing me acting this way or letting this go. I'm not saying it's an excuse, because an excuse would say, then I just don't need to work on it. I'm just going to keep going because this has been a rough season. So therefore, I don't need to work on it. That's an excuse. Awareness is, okay, I see this area of my life that I've kind of let slide. It's not working for me. It's keeping me from showing up the way I want to. What actions can I take from this point on, step by step, some baby steps, some huge elephant steps, giant steps, whatever you want to call it? What steps can I take to start to improve? And it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means I'm human. And that's okay. Because if you start giving yourself grace first, you give yourself grace first, you're going to give others grace. There's kind of this weird myth, this lie out there that when or people say like, oh, it's selfish to say to put yourself first. Like when you see posts about like, mamas, you need to put yourself first. Da, da, da. Well, that is selfish. There is kind of a weird undercurrent there. No, it's not selfish. If you're not showing up as a mom, if you're not taking care of your needs, if you're noticing that maybe you're sad more than you're happy, and you're like, well, I can't think about myself first. I need to think about my kids. You're going to continue being sad. And it's probably going to get worse. And then you're not going to show up as the happy mom that you want to be. Right. So, yes, you have to look and be like, I have got to give myself grace first. Because if you're not giving yourself grace, you're not going to give other people grace. We've all ran into those people who just, nope, not going to give anybody grace. I'm going to be this bitter, angry person because they're bitter and angry with something in their own life. Give yourself grace first. And what you will see unfold before you is when you start doing that and you realize, okay, this is where I'm at. I have a baseline of where I'm at right now. And it's okay that everything's not everything is in, a 7, 8, or 9 on the scale. That's okay. I see where I'm at. And this makes sense to me of why I'm here. And just be curious, become aware. Why did I let that go? What's going on? Oh, this is what's been happening. And like I said, it's not an excuse, it is awareness. So that is the difference between becoming aware of something and meaning that you're a failure. Because some people, is it uncomfortable to do these things and be like, oh gosh, I'm going to see this. I'll be honest with you. When I did my life wheel assessment back, like I said, a month after my dad had passed, I was a little bit anxious. I was a little bit nervous about doing it because I knew there was going to be something that wasn't quite hitting the mark that I wanted. And that's okay. I mean, of course, I want to do better in all the areas of my life. I was a little bit anxious, but I was also like, yes, but I also need to know this because if I'm not aware of this, there's no way I can work on it and take action steps to make it better. So I hope this blessed you guys. Those of you out there listening to this, if this blessed you and you pass it on, that's what this is about, because I want people to just show up and live a life. We're not going to do this perfectly. We weren't ever meant to do it perfectly, but how can we do the best that we can? And part of this is just being aware of areas of our life that we've let slide. So share the episode, go and rate it, guys. I'm going to tell you over and over, please, if you liked it, go give me a 5-star rating and then put a review on there, because when you do that, it just kind of messes with the algorithm. The algorithm says, okay, people are paying attention to this one. Let's move it up. And it allows other people to see it easier, to find me easier on here in the land of podcasts. There's so many. So glad you're here. Thank you for tuning in. If you are interested in my group coaching program, there are spots available. I've got Unleashed going on right now. You can message me and find out what is that all about. We meet once a week on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we get coached. We do exercises and lessons, and we show up as who we are, vulnerable and real, and ready to see, okay, what can I do moving forward to make myself the better version possible? So thanks for tuning in, guys. And until next time.